Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is completely terrible right now. I don't know if the format has ever been worse, and it's truly not been fun to play. Straight up.
Look how saturated he is. Is this Dan? Get Dan in here. Dan, you gotta crank down the saturation.
Miserable. I know Farfa has already talked about this.
I hope the bear gets rabies.
And I know it's a big reason why Josh is shifting away from Master Duel. I want to...
Oh. Is that what Josh said in the video? Josh is very good about being like pretty opaque with his reasoning for stuff. I know the real reason he quit Master Duel is because he thinks it's too woke. But it is funny to be like, he's like, yeah, you know, I think my priorities are just shifting. And Jesse's like, he hates it.
to add my own 2 cents, as I know this is still a somewhat active discussion. Now, I guess before I get into my opinions and my ranting, if you will, remember, guys, that I encourage you...
Jesse, you got to upload these faster. I hate to be like this. We're already on to the next thing. We know Master Duel's dead. We're playing Genesis now.
To comment below and to discuss anything related to Yu-Gi-Oh! With me. Just remember to do so civilly and treating people with respect.
Absolutely not.
People forget that sometimes in a heated debate, let's all be friends here, because it's just a game after all. But on that topic, oh god.
He's like, let's have a spirited debate in the comments. I guess you could say, you know, prove me wrong, but let's keep it civil.
Games are supposed to be fun, right? Because I've certainly not been feeling that way.
That's like a really cool intro to this video. Games are supposed to be fun, right?
The way Master Duel is. Let me give you guys some context. Now, this matters most importantly for myself and the competitive players right now, because one of the main ways to qualify for the World Championship is through the Duelist Cup system, which of course there's 3 a year. And then
you excited to play the Duelist Cup this weekend, by the way? They just released a cool new way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And you still have to do Duelist Cup, everybody.
4 events a year that matter to qualify for the World Championship, and that's only 4 events a year really. We have a chance to really try our asses off to do well. And the first Duelist Cup of this season is going to be this weekend. Well, it's already started actually. Stage 1 is underway, but Stage 2 is the grind. It's a 72-hour kind of free play tournament where you earn points for winning and lose points for losing, and the highest ranking duelists will get points to go to the World Championship, and the winner just earns an invite straight up. Yeah, it's a big deal this weekend, and it should be a ton of fun to watch people stream and make content over it and compete. But as a competitor, I'm looking at this through the lens of someone trying to master the format, trying to learn what's going on, as well as figure out what decks and what techs are going to thrive in the environment. So it also means even beyond just 72 hours of dueling, I've been playing a lot in preparation to, again, hone my craft. It's been rather frustrating. Even before this month, others like myself have voiced their opinions that Malice creates a toxic environment, and Master Duel hasn't been fun for a while as a result, ever since that set came out with Malice in July. Partially because it feels impossible to play against going second.
Yeah.
Hand traps do almost nothing. Ash Blossom, for example, is notoriously bad against Malice, and even other hand traps like Impermanent Veiler do very little, and you can oftentimes just be entirely overridden. And it's the same argument that we've talked about in the past with cards like Snake Eye and Ubel, where you have to Imperm early on to stop them altogether, because if they start playing, they spiral so fast that there's no choke points, and there's no way your hand traps can actually be meaningful. It means that there's very little decision making when interacting with the opponent when you go second, and it also means that if you don't stop them, it's not going to end in a weaker field. They're just going to make the full field while you've lost cards in your hand. And these combo decks where you have to hit the starters and pray that it works, like against Malice and the new Ryzeal variants, you lose that dynamic, and it creates these games that feel over within the first 5 seconds of the duel. You're comparing both hands, they summon the starter, you see if you can handle it. And the World Championship felt that too. The going first win rate for World Championship this year was incredibly high, and that's even considering that there wasn't all Malice and Ryzeal. There were other decks that had to be played as well. And when that's the case, of course, those other decks are going to be worse, because you have 2 better ones and then a worse deck. Still, if you watch that tournament, you know that oftentimes the games felt immediately over within the first turn. And
man, I mean, the number one thing I would be disappointed about if I was Konami is the viewer experience that resulted from these events. It was pretty frustrating to be like, yeah, there's no recompense here. The only thing you can possibly do is open one of our 8 maxis.
Even when you got to play going second into a field, anything you could try and accomplish felt almost pointless. It also stems from the fact that Malice has an excellent resource follow-up, because you're putting a bunch of cards in grade that all trigger immediately when banished, and you have many ways to do that, with March Hair cycling back in itself being an easy one. So if you're able to exit on the field as Ryzeal, it's almost false hope. If you can't exit on the field and deal with other stuff coming at you, it's still lost. You could take the perspective of playing a second deck and try to break the field with more dedicated board breakers, but it still rarely works against Malice, because the end field is so strong.
So resilient.
And beyond being strong, it's layered. What that means is even if you clear the entire field, so kill every card, Duster, Lightning Storm, say both go off uncontested and the board is clear, they have March Hair now, they can banish Whitebinder from the grave, draw a card with Whitebinder, and mind you, deck plays a ton of hand traps, they can draw both Jesse Cat and Whitebinder. They have 3 to 4 draws, because they can Whitebinder on your turn as well. And then Whitebinder will banish from the grave a White Rabbit and a Cryptor. So that Cryptor is going to come back, it's going to be another banish, as well as the White Rabbit is going to set in MTP. So they have another banish. So now through you clearing the field and using 2 cards, they've drawn 4 cards, which can be more disruptions, as well as developed 2 non-targeting banishes, which are very awesome disruptions. And this is on top of, you know, anything else that might be happening too. And mind you, this was all last format. This is all a month ago, because actually it's worse. People like myself are already kind of doom and gloom about the state of the format. I mean, I voiced my opinions of not liking Malice in the TCG, and it took people a while
Dude, he looks rough in this picture.
to kind of come around to my way of thinking, and maybe some still haven't, but we're now in that position in Master Duel. One thing that Master Duel Malice didn't have for the longest time is it didn't have the same card pool that other regions did. So no
right, it didn't have backup adding
Mister, no Wizard Mister, and no allied code talker adding Mister. It did have the advantage of being the only format with Appaloosa and Link Decode legal, with neither being legal in the TCG, and you still finding the deck frustrating. And now in September, if you guys haven't been aware, those cards are out now. So
Yeah.
Malice is now the strongest it has ever been in any format. So it is stronger than it ever has been in both the TCG and the OCG because it has the complete card pool with no restrictions. There's 2 gold sarcophagus as opposed to 1 in the TCG, and it also has Decoder and Appaloosa legal.
Yep.
And with this allied code talker, that also means you now have access to an Omni Negate without having to play bad cards like Terahertz, in my opinion. So board breakers are even less effective, and the end board is even stronger, as well as Cyber's Wicked means that your end field can be like you have more bodies to make your end field. So it's not like you're choosing between Appaloosa and Terahertz or Sonic Terahertz allied code. You're making both, and there are many hands where I go Appaloosa up top, and then you have Firewall below that, and then linked to that is your allied code talker. And then of course you have March Air in hand, so that's going to set up the Cryptor Banish, the MCP Banish, and the Whitebinder Banish. You get 4 draws in the process, and of course you have these 3 powerful boss monsters on your field. That's really, really powerful. I shouldn't have to say that unless you mess up, you should not be able to lose these games. And the thing is, even if you do mess up using interactions, most hands your opponent will throw at you still cannot beat you. And even the dedicated breaker decks like Gem Knight and Tempai will have a hard time. Malice creates this almost insurmountable threat with almost no way to handle it. What is the approach that's being taken to combat that? Because obviously, not like there's nothing you can do. There's not much, but it does get a bit worse. So obviously, the best way to handle Malice is with Artifact Lancia, a lingering floodgate, something
which
I've
just
always
wins
being
the
very
game.
helpful for the game for a long time. That of course you tribute it in the hand, and until
Just
the end of
not
the
a
turn,
fun
your opponent cannot banish,
gameplay
or
loop.
neither player can. But Malice can not function that well under this card. With the new Ignister cards, they actually have some counterplay, but for one, it's not consistent, and 2, it's actually beatable at the half field. But then there are many hands where if they don't draw the right cards, they will just pass. The problem with that is, of course, Master Duel is best of 1. So for you to do that, you have to play Lancia in the main deck. Lancia is pretty useless against most other decks. Again, you're adding more variance to a game where now you're just going to draw Lancia in a bunch of cases where it's entirely useless. And in fact, you see other people switch away from Malice because every single person is main decking 3 Artifact Lancias. Of course, the other solutions to this are playing Maxi and Moltron Fualos. Fualos is honestly, I think, healthy into Malice because it forces them onto a half field, and they can do so almost every time, and it gives you an actual fighting chance in some matchups. Not every. Ryzeal, I think, still struggles into a Malice half field, but that's a Ryzeal problem, not a format problem. And I think if there were more cards that replicated that situation, you could have healthy games. Lancia is hit or miss if it accomplishes that, and Maxi goes too far because it's way too powerful in second. Still, the trend here is you're relying on lingering floodgates to even have a chance versus Malice. Lingering floodgates, of course, being cards that once activated apply an imposition or like some restriction onto the opponent that they cannot get rid of for the rest of the turn unless they place a new lingering floodgate on top, and we'll get to that as well because that's fun. And definitely my least favorite aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! And they, for what it's worth, have mostly been moving away from cards like this in terms of card design. But of course, Maxi still exists, one of the most infamous one. It's very frustrating to play against. It feels like the games are decided immediately and you have no real recourse, right? I've often defended Yu-Gi-Oh! As being a fast game that ends in 1-2 turns because as long as both players are interacting, making decisions, and actually engaging with each other within those 1-2 turns, it's fine. It's just the turn count isn't what matters. It's not interactions. But when the game is over in 1 or 2 turns, but one player doesn't get to do anything, that isn't fun. That's not good Yu-Gi-Oh! I think it's relatively
It is cool to be like, the counterplay is one player doesn't play. Exciting, right?
What about this game do you enjoy then? Because for me, that's not interesting. It feels like flipping coins while playing solitaire at the same time, and that's not good.
No, it's very bad.
The format has evolved into a point where people are main decking a lot of lingering floodgates because it feels like their only answer. And now, Malice's next best bet to combat this is to main deck Duel and Lockbird, which of course you'll know I also have great disdain for because it is yet another lingering floodgate. Stopping searching is truly backbreaking to decks that need to search. I feel like there are other ways to manage combos and resources with better disruptions than just saying you can't. Duel Lockbird is good in Malice because Malice does not search. So when you get Maxi or Fualos, you can draw yourself.
You draw yourself.
It's not a full combo, but it's enough of a combo that most decks still cannot win. And this time when I say most decks, I mean like 95% of decks can win, including the Malice mirror match, because your end field, depending on what you drew to extend with, could be the full fields. Even if not, it's still rather strong. And it just entirely negates the Maxi or the Fu after one draw. Oh, and if you're playing a Ryzeal deck and you're like happy that Duel Lockbird is used out of their hand, don't get ahead of yourself. Firewall Dragon can return it to the hand. If they see you like activate a bonfire on your turn, they go chain Firewall, add back roll, and you just have fun because the game is still over. And that is even if Ryzeal felt like had a chance in that position. I really don't think it does.
Which
I
they
guess
don't.
That is more for Tempai decks that are more dedicated to breakers and might have a small chance because the Malice player was denied the ability to draw cards like Impulse and Nash. Now Malice has more outs to Maxi.
Also, they get 4 draws, so
now if you're playing any
they can
other
find
deck
draw
to try and cope with the Malice metagame and the Lancia minigame, like Ryzeal, you're gonna get Droll to shit now, and Ryzeal struggles with Droll. And on the topic of Ryzeal has also become an uber oppressive deck. It's not.
This is the other thing that's irritating. Is like this would be one thing if Malice was like this incredibly broken tier 0 deck that people were upset about, which I think that it is. But it's like, so what's the second best deck? It's actually just as annoying.
You know, we talked about it being somewhat engaging to play with back in December in the TCG, but Master Duel never had that option as Star Ryzeal came out. Now, it's important to go back to what I said, where Ryzeal had this choke point, where if you interacted with Duo Drive, you didn't stop them from playing altogether. They ended on a half field, and then you could engage in a grind game. That is what many players, like myself, would consider a good game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because now it becomes actual critical thinking, and you have to adapt. That's interesting, not memorizing combos and lines and bullshit. But with Star Ryzeal, what happens is, your opponent starts with X or Ice, or any of the searchers to get those, they can eventually get to an Ice special summon a Star. Star then sets up Cross. Cross for one can stop hand traps, but now, even if you have Imperm for Duo Drive, the Cross is there with Detonator. And the biggest thing is you want to deny that from happening, because Cross and Detonator as a combination is so hard to overcome. And now you just can't stop that with just an Imperm.
Even the Star isn't annoying. I think just the end board.
You can't force them to
The end board that's being played in Master Duel because
again,
it's best of one.
You're forced on this approach of suffocating the starter, which is unreliable and creates, again, very boring games where you're crossing your fingers, your opponent just doesn't have more monsters. When you max your Fuwa, or if your opponent gets the full combo with Ryzeal, they may just full combo anyways, because the deck's half field isn't that good. And they'll go for Starliege, Baguska, Duo Drive with the cross and the traps.
Awesome.
Starliege will make all the monsters untargetable, including itself, and then Baguska will be a floodgate. I'm sorry, at what point did I say I liked a floodgate that can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects? Awesome card design. And that's why, like, I've occasionally kind of pushed for a Baguska ban, because there are many formats where that card is just truly a wretch on the metagame.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the worst offender in this format, because
but it
is
is frustrating.
But when players are forced to go for lingering floodgates and stuff, and they have to push through these cards to do what they can, they're enticed to go Baguska. And because breakers are so unfeasible
Wrong
right now,
Baguska.
you can't play
That's the
cards
right
to beat the Baguska. The irony is, I've seen people play some board breakers to beat this Baguska, but then again, now you're putting bad cards against Malice and more matchup variance, and general utility cards feel at an all-time low right now, because you have to dedicate into hoping you're playing into the right setup, builds to beat that setup, and then otherwise go first. Because if you're not doing one of those two things, you're just losing. Again, not interaction-based, not critical thinking-based, it's bad Yu-Gi-Oh! Ryzeal is honestly also pretty toxic right now. I think Ryzeal does have a little more interesting push behind it. For one, it's a little better going second into like fields, except for Malice of all things. The mirror match itself is somewhat better. That deck can be interacted with in a grind game fashion sometimes, but it's still, I'm not thrilled with the way Ryzeal interacts in the game. I think if Star Ryzeal didn't exist, it'd be a lot better. Star Ryzeal, talking of the card, is a card I've kind of got a note to say. It's one of the most worst designed cards in recent history, because I thought Ryzeal was interestingly designed before that. The deck is linear. It doesn't have a whole lot of decision making in combos. That's fine. Every deck has to be a combo deck. But where the deck I felt was interesting was, again, you had these decision points where to interact with the deck, and depending on how you interacted, you have different outcomes you have to deal with, and it would force both players, again, to be flexible. Something that is lost within Yu-Gi-Oh! In this landscape, and it's very core piece of Yu-Gi-Oh's identity, the flexibility and utility within cards, and that's lost. Star's release meant that flexibility got removed, because now you don't have one choke points, you have two, you need 2 choke points to do something meaningful. And the other problem with Star is it requires adding a brick to your deck to make it work. It is powerful enough that it
feels bad to play as well.
Play Star, but now you have another card you want to draw on your deck. And to me, it's like the worst type of card, a card that makes the deck
you don't want to
hard
play, and it removes options from your opponent.
So you have to play it, but it's also a bad draw in itself, so it still makes the deck less consistent, which is frustrating to play with and against, because you're playing Ryzeal, you don't want to brick, obviously, and when you're playing against any opponent, it may feel good to win, but it also feels rather unrewarding to watch your opponent go, I guess I'll pass on their first turn, because they have nothing. I think cards need to reflect card design that doesn't have bricking in it, or if they're going to be bad draws, at least make them usable. Like Sword Ryzeal is not a good draw to normal summon, but drawing it and normal summoning it, I don't feel like the world is over. I at least have options. Like, I get they're trying to balance it, but it's going to be a problem either which way, the way they designed it initially. So they really haven't fixed any problems. Now, you can see me sit here and complain about decks like Gem Knight and Tempai. They're now popping with meta as hope to beat the rogue Ryzeal players, and maybe Lancia out the what's called Malice opponents. But in truth, I really don't feel like those are that a problem right now. Those decks may not even exist if we were in a healthier format, where they're trying to thrive on the sort of
I think Gem Knight's cool,
though. Floodgates are the only thing that works, and when you build your deck so much to combat your opponent going first, going second decks have a little more room to breathe. Still, though, those decks are not something I'm thrilled with as far as options. This is the predicament I'm finding myself in. Games end immediately to bricking, way more often, you have to find space for non-engine. Games end to lingering floodgates, whether it be Maxi, Lancia, or Droll, like immediately. Boards are unbeatable, whether it be Ryzeal or Malice. Overall, decision-making in the game feels at an all-time low. I'll say that I've seen some people, cough Judeu, say that the format's not that bad.
He's like, all right, now time for the Judeu part of the game.
They're excited to play. And I appreciate optimism. I do like...
Judeu loves this game. I don't know what to say. He's the #1. He loves this game.
Optimism, and I would love to come here with more, like, cheer and share some Christmas spirits and say that things are good. But, I mean, I think TCG's better right now, but I don't think Master Duel is. I'll be blunt. And
TCG is so good right now.
Honest one, I think it's time. And usually good indicators if you're having fun. I'm not. Part of the argument is that you still have interesting games. And yes, these can occur. For one particular, I like when you follow Malice, and if it's a Malice mirror, you can get interesting games. Or games where both players draw a lot of cards like Impermanent and Pulse, and then it becomes an actual navigation of using disruptions, because both players have more non-engine than they do engine. But those, for the most part, ignore the lingering floodgates. So they have to hope that doesn't happen. But also, it doesn't happen that often. Yu-Gi-Oh! At the end of the day, is still Yu-Gi-Oh! We haven't gone that far removed, thankfully, that it's entirely flipping coins. It still feels like these situations happen significantly less than they did before. And understanding the Duelist Cup is about volume of games being played as well. When you play 300 games, there will be a fair number of them that can end up being interesting and skill testing, and that's why probably what will happen this weekend is still the better players will do well. But for me in a game, if it's good 1 every 10 games, not just spam constant games for it to be enjoyable, that's not a good game. I'd rather that most of the games are good and there's occasional bad ones than the inverse. And I feel like that should be obvious, but I'm still gonna refight this because some people say they have fun playing still, and I mean, they're allowed to have fun. But for the most part, it really isn't. There are many games that really just are not interesting. And I'm rolling my eyes. Yep, here we go again. Oh, on top of the Lancia and Maxi minigame is the call-by minigame now. You know how many times I've had, like, double Lancia and they go call-by on the Lancias? Or I have...
I fucking love call-by being it, too.
call by it, and my opponent Max sees me,
Hold
and
up.
I call by it, and they Lancey on me, and I'm playing Ryzeal, so I'm like, nice, the Lancey that's supposed to be dead against me now screws me over. Lingering floodgates are a problem. They need better disruptions for going first, or for going second, so you can like combat going first. That's not lingering floodgate based, and they need to tone down these combo decks in a way where at least it feels like you have choke points you can interact with, because right now this feels terrible. And I guess I'm just reliving memories from the TCG, but it's worse because of Apo, Link Decoder, and Maxi. They've just made it worse. I am curious if anybody does actually enjoy the format, and if you do, I'm not attacking you, just I'm curious. Explain your reasoning. Be genuine here, right? Because again, I want to have a forum where we can communicate in a friendly manner with each other, which I know doesn't always happen. And I'm sorry if I perpetuate that to any degree. Call me on my shit if I do, but civility is important. And yeah, I will still be playing the Duels Cup. I don't think I'll be streaming it because I want to try focus, and it does distract me. I might record my run and then post it onto the highlights channel afterwards. You can find the link for down below. So subscribe to that channel if you haven't already to keep up with that. But hopefully it goes well for me. And the thing is, just because Master Duel is bad right now doesn't mean it will always be bad. Keep in mind that I think last year around this time we felt TCG was worse with Snake Eye, but Master Duel was better.
Yeah.
There were less Omni-Nates in the game, and even though Fire King and Bell were strong like they were in the TCG, without cards like Lardress and Fiendsmith cards, it felt like you had more real games and you could actually break through fields and play. Format wasn't perfect, but it was a fine format. So things can change for both the TCG and Master Duel. You may see the roles reversed once again, and I hope that Konami's paying attention to what we're saying so that they can fix stuff. Now, I'd like Maxi to go, but there's other problems besides Maxi that need addressing right now. And I will certainly hope that they pay attention to this to not kind of create these environments again, especially because there's more Duels Cups in the year, and hopefully by the next one, I'll feel more happy about going into that event. Anyways, guys, it's my rant for now. Hopefully
Oh man, I love these like totally unscripted Jesse rants where he's just like, I got some bullet points. We're gonna get to the bullet points. I don't know. I don't think it's anything we haven't heard before. You know, I don't think it's like any novel insight. I think it is just everyone is so clearly fed up with the obvious problems with the format. That's one of the things that's pretty insightful for me, because as a content creator, a lot of the time what we do is we have to invent a way that Yu-Gi-Oh's dying so that we can complain about it and make a video called Yu-Gi-Oh's dying. But right now, everyone is having the same grievance, which is Master Duel is in the middle of a Tier 0 format functionally. The only deck that's even remotely competitive with that Tier 0 strategy is the most boring shit in the history of time. And because it's best of one and they have not built a ban list tailored to best of one, so many games are decided by lingering floodgates, or who found their Maxi, who found their Fuelos, who found their Droll and Lockbird, who found their Lancia, or I have a fucking unbreakable board, you can't possibly defeat me. And I don't know, there is a way out. There is an obvious way out that they will not take. The less obvious way out is to just wait for the Jush decks. During that time, you will not catch me playing too much Master Duel, I'll be completely honest.